Marvel Studios' Eternals is being compared to DC films. Like Marvel actually made a DC film? Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix. My name is Chris Wong. Marvel's Eternals is coming out November 5th. The premise is, after the return of half the population in Avengers Endgame ignites the emergence, the Eternals, an immortal alien race created by the Celestials who have secretly lived on Earth for over 7,000 years, reunite to protect humanity from their evil counterparts, the Deviants. Now, I did a trailer reaction before about Icarus where he actually reminds me of Superman. Yeah, even some scenes looked exactly like Man of Steel in certain cases, like this one where he's punching that dragon, like Man of Steel where he's punching Zod. Of course, the I-beams and him being taken down by some monster is kind of like, the Kryptonians trying to take down Kal-El in the Smallville fight. Top of the look and feel of the movie, it just doesn't seem like your usual Marvel movie. But who knows, when I watch it, I'm like, yeah, no, that's still standard Marvel fare. But the reactions have come out, and there are several people who compared this to a DC film. Scott Mendelson. Ugh. Eternals flirts with being just a superhero movie, but barely gets by on scale. A few affable actors and some eventual intrigue. At its best, it almost plays like Marvel playing in the DCEU sandbox, but coasting on comparatively generic superhero archetype. Now, I may want to add that if Scott Mendelson doesn't like it, I'm probably gonna like it already. Peter Soretta. Eternals is surprising, epic, beautiful, yet dense. It takes some big swings, sometimes feels like a DC film, not a criticism, other times feels like no other superhero movie ever. I wish I had a glowing quick reaction to offer you, but I'm left with more complex thoughts. Scott Menzel. Eternals is Marvel's version of Zack Snyder's Justice League, a film that builds upon a cast of unknown characters and does so with great success. Chloe Zhao. Direction is superb, easily one of the best looking Marvel films of all time. Insane post-credit scenes too, Eternals. Now that may seem like a very positive review comparing it to the likes of Zack Snyder's Justice League, but his comments further are kind of questionable. However, I would argue that the story is a mixed bag, as are the performances. The film follows the whole getting the band back together story structure, and it feels very bloated and convoluted in its approach. Now for all of us who's wondering he's actually comparing to Zack Snyder's Justice League, what? That's not really the case. Here's why I said Eternals is like Zack Snyder's Justice League. There was a lot of criticism about Justice League feeling rushed and how DC didn't take the time to build the characters. In fact, many claimed that there should have been more standalone films before Justice League. Eternals introduces 11 characters in one film. Most of them feel underdeveloped and come across as one-notes. The film is largely exposition with a few action sequences sprinkled throughout. It sometimes feels too long yet rushed at the same time due to the script, which is very messy. Eternals is very similar to theatrical cut of Justice League. Theatrical? Why didn't you just call it Joss Whedon's Justice League? Characters who we don't really know are thrown into a film and we are just supposed to accept like them without knowing much about them. Now it's funny he said that because there's a lot of team up movies that come out without those solo films. I mean, did we want to watch every single samurai before the Seven Samurai? Did anybody have a problem with not seeing Rocket Raccoon's solo movie before Guardians of the Galaxy? I just don't understand. Clearly you can tell that Chloe Zhao was trying to make a film that felt wildly different from anything in the MCU. It felt more like a DC film, but just like the theatrical cuts of Snyder's work, the whole thing feels cold, watered down, and all over the place. So I don't know if you didn't know that was in Zack's movie or not. I don't know. But, his thread kind of just got the Marvel fans mad and the DC fans as well. But the most important thing is that it felt like a DC film. It felt like Chloe Zhao could be making a DC film. And that's really cool. And I think she recognizes DC and maybe even a fan of DC as well. She included a couple things in the movie referencing DC characters. This is coming from Kevin McCarthy at Real Blend.
I'm actually interested in knowing this. It was released in the featurette where a character looks at Richard Madden and basically says, "Hey, you're Superman," and he goes, "No, I have no cape."
Dad, that's Superman with the cape, and you're shooting laser beams out of your eyes.
I don't wear a cape.
Yeah. Does that mean that Batman and Superman exist in the MCU, or are they being read as comics characters in the MCU? How does that work?
Well, I think, we're in the business of telling stories about mythologies. And I think Superman and the great movies that portrays, Superman on big screen, they are modern versions of mythologies, right? And Icarus is our version of that. Doesn't mean we can't pay tribute and have a good time with these really iconic versions that we all love. Superman, Batman are both referenced in the film. The way it's referenced, I would say, is more that the kids read it somewhere, so he saw that was Superman.
Okay.
Or Gilgamesh loves Batman movies, and he watched Batman, and he has a reference of ballet. But hey, you never know.
Yeah, all right. Well, that would be amazing. I would love to see that.
I will be there day one in the theater if that happens.
Now, she's not really saying that there is a Superman and Batman in that world, but that would kind of be cool. I mean, maybe we can have that Marvel DC crossover. For me, it kind of reminded me of Spider-Man 1, where Aunt May said, "You're not Superman, to Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. Either way, it's nice to hear those references in a Marvel movie. I get the feeling maybe she is more of a DC fan than we think she is. She posted this on Instagram, and people noticed that there are some DC characters in that photo. Is she hinting that she may be doing a DC film or wants to do a DC film? Or is just a fan of DC in general? And if she wants to do a DC film, the perfect film for her would be New Gods. Now, Ava DuVernay was taken off New Gods, they canceled New Gods, and they're not going to do that right now. That's okay, because Ava DuVernay is still doing some DC projects. But New Gods, it's such a big, bombastic, huge, mythological, science fiction, incredible Jack Kirby experience that deserves a movie, or movies. And since Chloe Zhao just dipped her toes into Jack Kirby's Eternals a little bit, why not go to New Gods for DC? I mean, they're already saying that it looks like a DC film. Well, I think that means she's a perfect match as a DC film director. Not to mention, she won an Academy Award for Nomadland. And if Warner Brothers leaves her alone like how they left James Gunn alone, how they left Matt Reeves alone, then I have a lot more confidence in her bringing New Gods to life rather than Ava DuVernay. But I guess we'll see. Eternals comes out November 5th. Let's find out how good or not this movie is.